YOB will be reading from Robear and the Reaper by Tim Stegaheis, where a series of metaphysical misadventures leads to a years-long search for the king of the necromancers. Enjoy. Chapter 3. Clearly it was time to leave. They quickly packed the few magical supplies they still had and ran out the back door as a large blimp dropped a rope ladder to the ground by the front door. Half a dozen people scurried down the ladder and entered the house. The dead heroes ducked around to the ruins of an ancient barn and managed to elude the detectives long enough to reach the open fields. The blimp cut the rope ladder and gave chase. Robear decided it was time for his shadow demons to lend a hand and asked them to create a field of darkness to cover their escape. The shadow demons came through, but could not resist laughing at their plight. Robear yelled that they should all head north and split off. He was trying to ignore the constant remarks about how silly he looked running in with a suitcase. Torrin split off in another direction. Mama kept on swerving as best she could and somehow got away into the night. Ruth was feeling her new confidence after following the death of the chickens. She turned around and spotted the ground runners coming from the house and thought that she would give them a thrill. Giving a vicious snarl, she charged the leader of the ground forces, expecting him to panic and take flight. Instead, he raised his hands in a clerical gesture, and suddenly Ruth felt a stabbing pain and weakness fall over her. Ruth turned and ran as fast as she could go after Mama's trail. Nobody fell back and joined her, helping her with encouraging words and positioning himself between her and the blimp. They quickly outdistanced the ground runners and eventually managed to lose the blimp. To their good luck, there was a small town just a few miles north, and they all selected it as their destination. Being dead, they found that they did not tire, which helped. Somehow, they all found themselves at a small church graveyard. They were all drawn to a fresh grave and gathered there. Immediately, Ruth and Nobody discovered that the radiation in the presence of the newly dead re-energized them. Not surprisingly, they wanted to hole up here for a while. Robear wanted to set off for a larger town he found on his map, but agreed to wait out the daylight in a shed near the church and then travel under cover of darkness. Torrin was still ignoring his smiles and attempts at conversation. Eventually night came, and there was little enough artificial light in this small town that they departed unnoticed. Robear kept an eye out for blimps, not wanting to encounter any magic detectives again. By traveling at night and hiding out by day, they avoided any blimps they saw. The group reached the town of St. George in a few days. Their magic sense told them that there were 2 hot spots in town for dark magic, but it was difficult to tell just how this affected their mission, and both places were well guarded. They split up to check things out and gather information. Ruth and Nobody worked at night, while Robear, Mama, and Torrin worked by day. Robear discovered that there was an abandoned magic school near the edge of town. Although the regular checks were made on the grounds, the high residual magic field would temporarily hide a follow-up ritual, and Robear hoped this would yield further information and maybe some clues to start their hunt for the Death Master. Mama Nettie, not realizing his plans, found a set of hotel rooms for them to stay in. Torrin broke up a bar fight and got offered a job as a bouncer. Ruth just snickered when she heard of how everyone was going in different directions. How would they resolve this one? Robear wanted everyone to move into the old magic school. The periodic check had only just been made a few days ago, and they would be safe there for a while. That evening, Nobody collected a few local rumors and bits of news which he offered for what they were worth. They decided to move into the old magic school and from there venture out to investigate the church and downtown brick building where their senses told them they would find the hot spots. The church was a large cathedral, much respected and well visited. The dark signals seemed to be coming from the cellar area. The brick building proved to be a research facility for the local magical college and control board, but local rumors suggested that underneath the official section was a clandestine black magic operation, using the school's radiation to disguise their presence. So they decided that both should be investigated. Mama and the Shadows would check out the research facility, while Robear and Torrin scouted out the church to see if there was a hidden entrance or something to indicate how a dark cabal could be operating beneath it. Using Shadow Pass, Mama and the Shadows gained an interior room well underneath the official operating section of the research facility. A narrow stair indicated that this was the entryway to the secret cellar. The overwhelming feel of evil was oppressive, but they went as far as to feel out the nearby rooms and found that one of them was too hot for comfort, and so made for the church to rejoin Robear and Torin. Robear joined a group of mourners to scan the inside of the edifice for energy and structural clues. The main route below the church was the crypt stair, just now open for the funeral. Later, finding an outside door to the crypt, they cautiously picked and opened it, and found that the bearers were just returning from the interment. Mama and the Shadows joined him just then. Once the way was clear, they journeyed inside, only to find the gravedigger conversing with a being that felt like a demon, although it wore human clothes and was effectively disguised. Robear asked his shadow demons if one of them felt up to the task of distracting the conversationalist long enough for them to get past and into the shadowy aisles further into the crypts. One of Robear's shadows felt equal to the job and manifested as a shadowy demon. He walked up to the demon in the crypt and began speaking. "Hello, brother. Have we a new recruit?" The gravedigger looked alarmed and stood back. The other demon was unperturbed and answered back. "Oh, hello. Actually, I was using this one as a stooge, but I suppose we could sign him up." Panic blossomed on the gravedigger's face. "He looks likely enough," said Robear's shadow, "and his position here would be right for keeping the church out of our business." "Actually, that's just what he was helping us with," returned the demon. "Keeping the rectors from finding our little hidey hole and letting us in at odd hours." "The rituals and tortures get exciting sometimes, I hear." The conversation only got grislier and more morbid from there. The gravedigger turned pale and fled out the side door. Robear and company slipped behind the preoccupied demon into an open vault nearby. Their choice was quite fortuitous. Robear's magic sense informed him that the source of the black magic was quite close. Nobody passed through the back of the vault and announced that a space existed behind the apparent wall. A quick search and they found the latch that allowed the back wall to swing open, revealing a stair leading down. At the bottom of the stair, they found a terrible scene. A bedraggled man was being held down on a long table, and a knife-wielding magician was about to slice open his throat as a band of ragged low-life types stood by chanting something in Arabic. Robear's attention was drawn to the magician. Here was an example of what Robear would have become if he'd stayed with the Vudans. Looking about 40, the man was well dressed in a suit and cravat, with gold rings and an expensive-looking tie pin. He stared at Robear, seeming to understand their similarities. The magician and his helper stood back from the table, and the victim rolled off onto the floor, hiding under the table. "You don't have to do this," said Robear. "The dark path is not the answer. I don't believe this is whom you wish to be." The ruffians were taken aback by the appearance of Ruth, and a few took ineffectual swings at her with daggers and clubs. Fear washed over them like a foul stench. "Actually," said the magician, "I have no choice in the matter. The master has enchanted me so that if I should betray him, I will be destroyed, body and soul." "So this is what your legacy will be?" asked Robear. "A butcher and a leader of butchers? By that standards you are already destroyed." Nobody crept up behind a clutch of thugs, and they began to look even more depressed than before. Sensing that he wielded power for the first time, nobody began to circle the room, spreading depression and self-loathing. One of Robear's shadows volunteered to enter the magician and obtain such information as he might know. "Be cautious," warned Robear. "Such a spell will draw you into the same fate if you do not separate yourself from him in time." "It is already out of my power," the magician was saying. "I cannot even attempt any move that he might interpret as betrayal." He was looking nervous and backing away as he spoke. "I should not be speaking with you. I must escape." Nobody and Ruth were discovering that they radiated despair and fear respectively, and were both circling the ruffians and ruining their self-assurance, Some went so far as to wet themselves. The few thugs that were able to shake the feelings off had their hands full with Mama Nettie's shadow demons, and who were enjoying the game immensely. The magician held up his hands, and his eyes went wide at the sight of it, for they were melting and turning black. "I am doomed," he cried. Robear's shadow returned to him with a sense of being shaken. "That is one powerful spell," it thought to him. "He is surely doomed, and no mistake." Indeed, the magician was rapidly shrinking and turning some hideous shades of blue and black. He gave Robear a final look of total despair and collapsed in on himself. When the lesser ruffians realized what had happened to the magician, they quickly fled out a back door. More stout-hearted thugs backed out, issuing threats as they left. Robear gave one last shuddering look at the noisome pool on the floor. The sacrificial victim was found unconscious under the table, so Robear carried him out the back door into another crypt. Leaving him to recover, they found their way back to the main hallway, and the two demons who were still discussing morbid subjects. The well-dressed demon gaped as he said to his friend, "Are these people with you?" Robear's shadow demon replied nonchalantly that they were, and he would have to continue their talk another time. Together, Robear and the party left to make their way to the old school and sanctuary. When they reached their hideout at the school, they had a quiet celebration at having defeated the magician. "You defeated him without using any of your foul magic," Athena enthused through Torn. "Now maybe you will return to the true path." "We will do what we must do," answered Robear. "Humph," answered Alina. "It's a victory for us, and no mistake," cried Mama Nettie. "I made those men flee in fear. I have power," said Ruth. "I helped," whispered Nobody with unusual assurance. "What do we do now?" Robear asked his shadows. "What do we know?" "Not enough," the shadow that had read the magician replied. "He was a powerful member of the Death Master's company, yes. The church will not be revisited for a while, but he is not essential in the chain of command. He did not know the secret basement He did know about the secret basement meeting place that Mama found as being the most important in the area. We should see if we can find out more there." "That's a nasty place, sure enough," said Mama. "Can we get back there tomorrow?" asked Robear. "We can try," replied Mama. "It won't be no moonlight stroll, I'll tell you true." "Did he meet the Death Master there?" Robear asked his shadows. "No, but sometimes he met his lieutenants and demons there," answered the shadow. They spent the daylight discussing what the basement hideout might hold. "That place'd be a big and bad mojo," said Mama. "It'd be chock full of the worst that follow the dark path. Back is pitch, and no mistake." "I'd love to just put the whole place to the torch," added Ruth. "It reeks of evil and power." "But there might be useful information there," said Robear. "We have to check it out." "But if we get into such a pit of evil and pray to God," suggested Alina, "maybe divine grace will drive the darkness out and let goodness clean away the evil." "I surely would not refuse any divine assistance on this," said Robear. "But we work for death, not God, and we have to depend on ourselves for this solution." "O ye of little faith," quoted Alina. "I feel that God would have very little for use of such as we," said Robear. "But if you want to offer a prayer and invite his influence into such a place, I will offer you such support as I can. But the forces who built that place will surely have shielded against any divine intrusion." "O ye of little faith," Alina quoted again, but this time with a smile in her voice. "You do know that the light side of voodoo recognizes and respects the Christian God, angels, and saints, do you not?" said Mama with unusual clarity. "But only in your filthy heathen way," snapped Alina. "Humph! I was telling you that we can pray to your God as well without it being heresy," returned Mama. "Not I," said Ruth. "I will believe only in death, as only death has ever been there for me." "I will pray," said Nobody submissively, "if you will show me how. I have never known prayer or faith." "If Mama can join you in prayer, I can too," said Robear. "But I too have never prayed in a Christian manner. You will have to lead us in any such prayer." "Humph!" Alina said again. "Faith must come from the heart, not because it is convenient or helpful to do so." Do you refuse our joining you in prayer, then? Inquired Robear. No, said Alina with disgust, but it would do all of you good to wake up to this side of light and good. The side of light and good that hired me to kill millions of people. The side of light and good that hired me to kill hundreds of people? Inquired Ruth sharply. Not so, said Alina. The side of light and good that murdered millions in the many inquisitions? Added Robear. That cannot be, refuted Alina loudly. My mind is open to you, said Ruth. Read the truth there. Alina was silent for a moment and said, That is not the will of God. That was some corrupt endeavor of men. My God is a loving God. Can you blame us for our doubts, given what we have endured in the name of your God? Said Robear. How did you know of the Inquisitions? Inquired Ruth. I thought that the church had erased the memory of them. Certainly I was hired to remove many who would write about them. They wanted no knowledge of them to be recalled by anyone. They are not forgotten by the gypsies, answered Robear. They have long memories. Alina said no more, but maintained an air of watchfulness for the rest of the day.